the West Bank earlier this month, has told Sky News that he's immensely proud of his family and has called for the international community to come together to bring peace in the region. Leo Dee lost his wife Lucy and daughters Maya and Rena, who were 20 and 15. He's spoken exclusively to our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkle.
Friday the 7th of April, we were travelling up to the north of Israel to spend the week of Pesach with my parents and my sister and nephews on the Sea of Galilee in Tiberias. And my parents set up in a separate car with my sister and nephews, and my wife and I have two cars, and she was in the car with Maya and Rena. I was in a car with Tali and Yehuda, and Karen was dropped off in Jerusalem because she was working at an orphanage where she works during the year, and she had to be there for Shabbat. As we got to the north of Israel, we received a call from my sister, who was way behind, who said that there'd been a terrorist attack on the route. And were we okay? So I said we were fine. I said, I'll just check Lucy, but I'm sure she's fine. I called Lucy, no answer. I called Maya, no answer. I called Rena, no answer. I noticed that there was a missed call from Maya at 10:52, and this was about 11:30. Then, we were slightly panicking at this point, and I looked on Google Family Link and I found that they were at the Hamra Junction, and that seemed to be where this pigur was, this attack was. And my son, I think, received on a website for attacks in Israel, because unfortunately there is such a site, a photograph of the car, just the car, and we spotted our suitcases in it covered in blood. So you can imagine this panic, don't know what to do, turn around, drive straight to the Hamra Junction, like a lunatic. We get there at about maybe 12 o'clock. We see the car, well, we're too far away to see the car. They won't let me get near to it. They tell me it's not good to see it anyway. And anyway, long story short, we waited there for half an hour, and I said, look, I have to go to the hospital because I hear that Lucy's been taken to the hospital. They wouldn't confirm it was Lucy. I need some ID before I can actually go because, please God, it's not them. Eventually they gave me Maya's ID card, and then we knew the worst. So we bombed down the motorway back to Jerusalem. We came to the hospital. She'd just been taken into intensive care, and she'd been prepared for the operation, and we accompanied her down to the operation. We waited there, and the events unfolded like that. So I lost my two beautiful daughters and my beautiful wife in that attack. We buried them. The girls were buried on Sunday. Lucy, there was some hope. She was on a life support machine, so...
she fought for her life.
She fought for her life. It turned out that she was able to give life to 5 other people through transplants, so we agreed to do that. And she was buried on the Tuesday. I've sort of lost track of time. And now we're here.
Tell me a bit about her and your daughters as well, of course.
Lucy was an exceptional human being. Yes, she was a community builder. She was someone who gave. And I think that was really her defining feature. And because she gave, she encouraged other people to give. And I'm feeling this now, that people that she gave to, because it's not so much my personality, are coming and just giving everything, and it's incredible. I think the kids picked up from that, and they've learned to give. So it's Maya was giving a year of volunteering in the south of Israel in a development town, in a school, and she was working as a counsellor to kids in 9th grade, and the amount of things that I've heard about that is incredible. The individual stories about the impact she had on individuals, and Rena was just a tremendous giver. She took responsibility for things that were really not her responsibility, and if she decided to do something, she would carry it through to the end, and people would trust her. She was at boarding school, so she would stay up all night chatting to girls, particularly girls who were struggling in the group, and she would try and help them through their difficulties, and she often wouldn't go to sleep till 3, 4 in the morning, and then she'd get up at 7, so usually by the time she came back to us, she was a wreck. And we wouldn't see much of her until sort of 24 hours of sleep, and then we'd get a few hours, and then she'd be off already as a counsellor in a frat with a youth group where she was looking after a group of 20 girls who were 12-year-old girls. She was just busy the whole time.
You must have been very proud of them.
Extremely proud of all of them.
Your wife literally gave life. She has saved the lives of 5 other people through giving her some of her organs in her death to be donated to them. I mean, that's remarkably selfless.
We're very proud that she saved 5 lives, two corneas as well. So that's another 2 operations that will take place. And one of them was an Arab, and I think that is significant to us because Lucy was very much into peaceful relations with our neighbours, and I think she would have been very proud that she saved a life of an Arab, even in this situation.
The man or men who killed your wife and daughters has not been caught yet. What are your feelings towards him?
I have told people I don't hold any hate towards them. I feel that the Israeli security forces will do what they usually do, which is track them down and bring them to justice, which I think is right because it prevents the next attack that they might do. And I pray for the safety of the Israeli soldiers who go in and risk their lives in order to protect the Jewish people, effectively, and Arab citizens, because a lot of these attacks don't discriminate between Jews and Arabs. They couldn't have necessarily known that this was a Jewish car. Maybe they saw her head covering. But there are 2 million Israeli Arabs who drive in cars with yellow number plates, as you know, living here. And had it been one of them, 3 beautiful Arab girls would have been killed mercilessly by these terrorists. And that's unfortunately what happens sometimes in this country as well.
You've lived in Israel, I think, since 2005. You lived in the UK for many years. You were born there, you met Lucy there when you were both at university. What does Britain mean to you now? I
love Britain. We love Britain. We came to Israel because, as you can see, the warm hug that we've had in this situation, I think, is just unique. I mean, we've had the whole Israeli people coming in and around us in a way that the British community is very close, but it's not as close as this. I mean, when a disaster happens in Israel, we're all brothers and sisters, and you really feel it now as people are bringing food and they're bringing everything, and it's really just, it's like being part of a massive family. So it's unbelievable. Unfortunately, when you're in this situation, which nobody else should ever have to bear, you receive a lot of emails and WhatsApps. And in the middle of the night, it was a bit of a comfort. I couldn't sleep, so I was opening some of the emails. And one of them just spoke to me. It was from Alex Balfour, from Balfour Capital Group in London. And it started as follows. As you can probably tell from my name, I have a close connection to Israel and to, therefore, what you're going through. So clearly his ancestor was the author of the Balfour Declaration. So I just responded to him, Alex, you should be proud of your ancestor because he stood up at the time and he issued the Balfour Declaration, which basically gave the British statement of that they would create a Jewish state in mandated Palestine. I think James Cleverly has shown that he is of the level of Balfour. And I want to call his revised letter the Cleverly Declaration. He states, there can be no justification for such senseless and abhorrent violence, and I unequivocally condemn this act of terrorism. The UK remains steadfast in our commitment to work with the Israeli authorities and all parties in the region to bring an end to the terrorism that Israel faces and to the cycle of violence, which, as we've seen all too clearly, is so destructive. And I feel that that statement saying that Britain stands unequivocally against violence and against terror is a landmark in British history in terms of its way it's dealt with the state of Israel. Because up until now, there's not been unequivocal condemnation of violence. There's actually been a very sort of wishy-washy condemnation of violence, which I think is slightly the Foreign Office's fault.
And just finally, when you do go to sleep at night, how do you remember your wife and daughters?
I decided to focus on the good, and I suddenly focused on my remaining daughters and my son, Karen, Tali, and Yehuda, and I thought about them, and I felt a sense of calm, and I was able to sleep. And My advice to people going through any type of trauma or any difficulties in their life is when you think about the good, and there's so much good in the world, and you don't think about the bad, your life is much better, you're much calmer, and you're in a much better position to cope. So that's all I can do at the moment.